This video is brought to you by Sun King Discs. Go to sunkingdiscs.com for a full selection of disc golf merchandise from all the major brands. Welcome to my review of the Paul Mcbeth Kong by Discraft. Big thank you to Sun King Discs for sponsoring this video. Go to sunkingdiscs.com to check out the website. They have a huge selection. Everything you could need is available on that site, so go check them out. Tell them I sent you. Also, big thank you to Jeremy Stewart. He is a viewer, subscriber of this channel who sent me this beautiful Kong right here on top first, and then Sun King sent me a couple more. It actually worked out really well, though, because I was able to test these 3 different individuals and see the differences in the flight path based on the shape of the dome. Seemed to be very important based on our testing. We'll get into that a little bit later. So let's get into the review. Taking a look at this one right here. Beautiful disc. Here are your flight numbers. Oh, first of all, here's Paul's logo, Paul Mcbeth, flight numbers 12, 5, -1, and 3. Those are very similar numbers to another disc you guys might be familiar with. We'll get back to that in just a little while. So this one, very flat across the top. Very comfortable feel in the hand. Look how beautiful this disc is as well. 173 grams. Jeremy actually weighed that and marked it, so I know the exact weight. All 3 of these are marked from Discraft to 170 to 172 on their sticker. So you can see he's got a really beautiful swirl pattern, especially on the bottom of this disc. Really, really pretty, and it's just a fantastic color. It couldn't be much better. You can see it so perfectly out there. It's really easy to spot. It looks great in the air. Looks great in your hand. I love it. We also have these 2. This one has a little bit more dome to it, similar weight, beautiful kind of minty green. Stay tuned to the end of the video. You'll have a chance to enter a giveaway to win this one. And this one is by far the most domey. It has a pretty substantial pop to it, as you can hear and see. And this one is really overstable. We'll get back to that a little later. So this one, nice and flat. I really like the feel in the hand of the Kong. It feels great. Looking at the rim profile here, you can see it's got a nice rounded outside edge there. The rim is not too wide. It has a pretty familiar feel in the hand. It's not super different to a Destroyer, but definitely has a little bit more of a rounded feel to it, which I dig, and it's very comfortable. The ESP plastic is great. This particular blend is nice. It starts out a little bit slick, but as I've noticed over the years with Discraft plastic, especially the ESP blends, they will get grippier and grippier over time. As it kind of breaks in, it will just kind of have more and more grip. My ESP Thrasher is like that. It was a little bit slick at first, and now it grips like crazy. So you can't really judge it brand new because it will kind of season in and change a little bit over time. So there is your rim profile. Let's put it up next to a couple other options. First of all, we have a Prime Trespass. Also a 12-speed disc. You can see there's definitely some noticeable differences there. The Kong is a little bit wider rim. It's a little sharper. It might be slightly shallower, although that's hard to say. But just wanted to give you a quick idea of what that looked like there. Also, by Discraft, I have a nuke here. So I figured that might be an interesting look. I don't have a force. I wish I did. That would be a good thing to show you guys. But there it is next to the nuke. So you can see the nuke is got a more pointed edge. It's got a wider rim for sure. And I think the Kong definitely feels better in the hand, from my personal opinion. And last but not least, we also have the Ricci Destroyer. Let's put it up next to that as well. I think it's very safe to say that the Kong is influenced and kind of designed around the Destroyer, with Paul being so well known for throwing Destroyers over the years. Same flight numbers and everything. You can see there are definitely some differences in the design. It's not like a direct clone or anything like that, but they are very similar in terms of flight. I was testing these 2 back to back, and I found them ending up in very similar spots. Even on slightly different release angles, they were ending up in a very similar location, although the Kong was kind of ending up just a little bit in front of the Destroyer time after time. Not a huge amount, 5-6 feet or so, but it was consistently landing a little bit farther. I think it's just because this particular Kong is a little bit less overstable than this particular Ricci Destroyer. Full review on the Ricci Destroyer coming up soon if you're interested. I really like the feel of the Kong. It feels great in the hand. It's nice and comfortable, has a really smooth feel, and had no problem releasing it, throwing it the way I wanted to, and a great time testing it. Let's talk about the flight of this thing. I think people get a little bit caught up on weight in disc golf. I think it's one of those things that people think is super important, but especially within certain parameters, it's really not that big of a deal in my testing. You guys know I've tested a ton of plastic. I think the shape of the flight plate and the dome, especially on these higher speed discs, is much more important in terms of the stability of the disc than the weight. All of these are similar weights, but you're going to see in the flight demos that they are definitely very different in terms of flight. The flattest one, being this bright orange one, is the most understable. It flies really straight. It flies awesome. We actually kept referring to it as the good Kong during testing. The kind of minty green one, somewhere in between, has a little bit more stability, a little bit more fade. You can put a little more heat on it, but it still flew nice and far and consistently. But this domey yellow-green one is really overstable. It has a very strong kind of a dumpy fade that drops you off the line. It was really overstable. So there's a big fluctuation in stability depending on the shape of the flight plate of this disc, even though they are all very similar in weight. So I think that's something you guys really need to pay attention to if you're trying to figure out which ones you want. If you want an overstable one, the domey ones are absolutely the way to go. If you're looking for one that you can kind of throw on more finesse lines, or if you don't have a big arm, you're definitely going to want to look for a nice flat one. The Kong overall, if you're familiar with a Destroyer, it's really not that surprising of a disc. It's got a good speed, a good stability, nice glide, and it really does fly like a Star Destroyer, essentially. Depending on which one you get. There's huge variations in Destroyers. There's definitely going to be some variations in the Kongs. I think that's just kind of how it works, especially with how many of these are out there on the market. Discraft has produced a huge amount of these Kongs, so there's just naturally going to be some fluctuation in the way they fly based on that. They're coming out of the molds a little differently, they're cooling slightly differently, and the ones that have more pop top on them are very much more overstable than the flatter ones. There's going to be some fluctuation. That's just kind of how it works, and I'm sure the same can be said about any Destroyer. The Destroyer is actually quite well known as being a relatively inconsistent mold. You can find Destroyers that fly incredibly overstable, and you can find Destroyers that you can throw a hyzer flip with. It kind of depends on which one you end up with. Overall, the Kong is a great addition to the Discraft lineup. It is somewhere less stable than your average force, so if you're throwing the force but you want something that's a little bit more throwable, doesn't have quite as aggressive fade, and isn't quite as difficult to get up to speed for your average player, I think a nice flat top Kong would be the way to go. This domey Kong ends up flying very much like a kind of beefy ESP Force, essentially. They're not really that different. They're both 12 speed, and they both have a similar amount of glide, strong fade, but when you get into the flatter Kongs, you're going to see a little bit more of a stand-up and ride type flight. They'll stretch out some extra distance, and will be a little bit better suited to the average player who doesn't have a ton of arm speed. That's my review. Thanks once again to Jeremy Stewart. Thanks once again to Sun King Discs for sponsoring this video. If you would like to win this minty green Paul Mcbeth Kong right here, medium dome, medium stability, all you have to do is head into the description below. You will find a Google form, fill that out, like this video, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and you will be entered to win this beautiful minty green Paul Mcbeth Kong courtesy of our friends at Sun King Discs. That is my review. Thanks for watching. I'll check you later. Cheers.